Salutations and shit, folks. Welcome to another episode of your favorite travel podcast, Travel and Shit, where I, your host, D. Carey, have an experiential conversation about the nuanced ways that travel intersects with regular life. I have started mentioning to you guys previously that I have a Substack now, and the Substack is where you can get the context, if you will, for an episode. Instead of me rabbit holing and yabbing on about how we got here for an episode topic, I can write about it because I can edit that and actually take my time. So, we are going to dive right in to a little bit of the spookies this week. And as I always like to remind you guys, if you would like to see the beautiful faces that join me, the podcast is also available on YouTube. So feel free to listen wherever you listen to your podcast, but feel free to put the YouTube on while you're cleaning your house. Because what else do you do while you clean your house, right? Music or podcast. So, to my beautiful guests, thank you so much for joining me. If you would please introduce yourself.
Thanks very much, and thank you for having me on. My name is Dawn Barclay. I write nonfiction as Dawn Barclay. I write fiction, mostly psychological thrillers and domestic suspense, and romantic suspense as DM Barr. And I also do editing. So I've just finished editing my second anthology. I'm working on a third. So yeah, that's me.
A real life writer, guys.
Pardon?
I said a real life writer.
Yeah, I'm a real life writer.
And as an aside, like, it's always fun to meet people that do things professionally in life that I kind of like closet dreamed about as a kid. Like, I used to write short stories a lot. And so my family said, "Oh, you're going to be a writer. Oh, the writer. Oh, the writer." And then, you get more into school and they tell you what to write and then how to write it. And so that always, kind of fell to the wayside. So I'm always enamored with people who like were able to get over that hump and then still find the joy in writing and continue to write, especially professionally. So definitely have some writer questions for you. But you are here with me today because you have a book coming out next year. Vacations Can Be Murder, a true crime lover's travel guide of New England. So before I let you explain that, I will say that I am both a lover of true crime and a lover of vacations. I have been curious about people who actively travel for the macabre, whether it be for how do you call it, like places of historical reference, whether it be jailhouses or certain cemeteries or places of like mass catastrophes. And then you also have people that just kind of dibble and dabble and will visit things. So all of it is in the air. There's so many different ways to do it, but I don't think that a lot of people necessarily think about like regular crime. Like, we all think about crime statistics and things where we live. We may think about crime statistics where the people that we care about live, but I don't know that a lot of people necessarily consider it in terms of traveling. There's the view of traveling. There's the view of what may or may not be safe for a traveler. But what about the people that just live there? What happens to those people? What are their stories? Where and how did they end up? I don't want to say topics of conversation. So before we get into what your book is about, how did you get into this particular topic?
It's a good question. I was in Minneapolis, of all places. I was there for BoucherCon, which is the World Mystery Convention, and I was a
There's one
there.
Of those?
Oh, yeah, there are a lot. I'm happy to talk to you about that. There's also a true crime convention called CrimeCon. And if you want to attend it very inexpensively, you can see all the videos on Crime HQ for like $50 a year by going to crimecon.com. But I went there. That's a whole other story.
There's interesting.
There's also Thriller Fest if you love thrillers, and Thriller Fest is in New York.
Oh,
so that's like 4 or 5 days in New York, and it's divided into Craft Fest and Thriller Fest and Pitch Fest, and it's a very cool thing for both writers and fans. But back to your question, I was in Minneapolis. I guess it was maybe 2022. It was just after COVID, because when I left, I got COVID from the convention. And I took a true crime tour because that's one of the things that they offered. And I was thinking while I was on this tour, which was very interesting, I wonder if there is a book that lists crime tours around the country, because God forbid I do anything that I don't try to capitalize on. So I found that there wasn't such a book, at least one that I could find. And from there, the idea grew and it kept growing. And I pitched it, actually decided to go to a mystery publisher that I knew, as opposed to trying to hit up a nonfiction publisher that I'd been working with for a book I did on travel with autism, with kids with autism. And she was interested, and I thought the right place to market this would be to mystery readers. And she has a new true crime division of the publisher that they were looking to start acquiring. So we signed a contract, and that's how that happened.
Now, had you previously been interested specifically in true crime or like mystery?
I'm certainly interested in psychological thrillers because that's what I like to watch and read. I wasn't a big true crime fanatic. I know I suppose to everybody's like, oh, you must have been loving true crime. I never watched it. I was never one of those people who sit around and watches it. Now I find it really interesting, but I'm learning about it as I write, which is probably good, because I'm not coming in with any preconceived notions. Fair. I'm not saying, oh, I've got to cover this story over that story. I'm looking at it all as sort of a newcomer. And when I write the summaries, because each chapter of each state starts with summaries of the biggest crimes and some of the most interesting crimes, I am seeing it as a primer for people like me who don't know those, or a refresher course for people who do.
Now, do you listen to like true crime podcasts?
Nope.
Okay, so I happen to consume them quite voraciously. That's basically all I listen to. That and The Read and The Friend Zone. But my absolute favorite true crime podcast that I would highly recommend to anybody, first and foremost, is Crime Junkie. And I stan Ashley Flowers and all of her Audio Chuck productions. I feel as if, let's just assume she's got 10 podcasts under the Audio Chuck umbrella. I promise you 8 of them are all true crime related. But what I specifically enjoy about not just, I would say, Crime Junkie is her main show, but I'd say all of the shows that she does under Audio Chuck, in fairness, is that they're handled tactfully. They're handled well, because I think what a couple of other shows, like I've tried to listen to other shows and I just can't get into it. I don't want to hear people laughing. I don't want to hear jokes during, somebody explaining how someone's daughter never came home. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So I really, really love the way Ashley Flowers and Audio Chuck handle their true crime podcast, because there's the information. It's great storytelling. It's informative, but then it's also got the appeal of true crime and mystery that we are there for. But that whole, if you could just look up Audio Chuck, or if you look up Crime Junkie, there's something in there that you'll be interested in. I love all of those shows. And there's one show in particular that she has called, so it's hosted by Delia D'Ambra, and it's Park Predators, that just became a weekly show. Congratulations on that one. And she actually delves into crimes, people that go missing, people that die in national parks. And so true crime, but then specifically targeted at the parks, which is mind blown. Who would have thunk? I remember going to, what was the place? The Grand Canyon. And I had made friends with my Airbnb host in LA. They joined me on my leg to Vegas. And oddly enough, he starts asking one of the park rangers, like, oh, so like, do a lot of people die here? And it was kind of like, oh, that's kind of weird question to bring up, bro. But it got me thinking, like, the people that die, like, you're watching people take like these really precarious pictures at like the edge of cliffs. And it's like, there's not a rail there. There's not like an air mattress to catch you. Like, people, to me, tend to lose their minds for a picture. But Again, this is why I have a Substack, because I will go down a rabbit hole. Okay, so
Yes.
Minneapolis was the start. How do
Yeah.
you research your information? Because that's one thing that I don't think most people appreciate, is not just the amount of research that goes into something, but the specific type of research that goes into a project like that. What does that look like for you?
I'm going to backtrack to two things before, and then I'm going to come back to that if
Please
that's
do.
okay. One
Absolutely.
is the Grand Canyon. I had a really hard time taking my kids there because I was so sure they were going to fall in. And I'm a
Reasonable.
nutcase. I'm a nutcase about stuff, so
No,
I
I
couldn't
think
look.
that's reasonable.
The other thing is when I was thinking that I didn't spend a lot of time watching true crime, but once I started writing, I started reading, watching more.
Hmm.
And I really like Small Town Dicks.
Okay.
Um, and I really like the behavior guys
Okay.
who will analyze body. You can watch them analyzing body language because I can always use that kind of
Hmm.
information in my fiction as well.
Oh, right,
So,
right.
and there are also podcasts that I want to listen to that have to do with scams and cybercrime because, again, I'm going to get plot ideas for fiction.
I got one
So,
for you.
oh, good.
And this one is good. Something was wrong. I think it's like from Broken Cycle Media. I cannot remember the host's name right. Oh, it was right there. But that podcast is a hoot. So it's told from the perspective of the victim, and like the victim actually tells the story, and it is outlandish. Like I feel like there's probably like 20 seasons now. The earlier seasons tend to deal with people that say, like, one that always sticks out in my mind, it was this young woman, worked at a grocery store, was kind of having a rough time in her personal life, befriended a woman at work. The lady was a complete scam artist, like a complete scam artist, and ruined this girl's life. It was insane. And then as the seasons progressed, they became more of like a serial, where one season is about one person, and then like the 12 people who unfortunately fell victim to whatever their lie was. So there's episodes or even seasons where one season was this man who was like a famous photographer or a tattoo artist or something like that. And he ended up having these incredulous relationships with women, but he was lying to so many people. He was married to one, had kids with like two others. Nobody knew about each other. Then some found out about each other. Then it became like a public scam. It was insane. But that one is really good. I would suggest that one.
So it's Something is Wrong. That's the name of
Something
it.
was wrong. Something was
Something was
wrong.
wrong. I'm
And
definitely checking that out because these
yeah,
all can be fictionalized and they become really good plots for books. So now I'm going to
yeah,
come back to you had asked, what was the question that how do I do my research?
yes.
Yeah. So Google is your best friend.
Hmm.
So I will, and I start by sort of Googling which the biggest stories are, and then I read the smaller ones. There is Murderpedia, which
Okay.
divides up mass murders by state and by
Hmm.
sex. And so I'm getting an overview from all those things, and then I'm delving further into them by using newspapers.com, and I'm looking at hundreds of newspaper articles because you can't just look at one or two.
No.
I'm reading books that summarize some of these crimes, although it's impossible for me to read all the books. Actually, I have a page in each chapter or a couple of pages listing books you can read about everything that I'm
Hmm.
talking about if you want to learn more, because I can only give like a paragraph because there's 6 states in this first book, and I've got so much material for each state, and it's 70,000 or 75,000 words, which is going to be about
Oh,
300 pages as it is. And we
okay.
want to keep them small enough that people can carry them with them.
Okay.
So there's a limit to how much I can write. And I'm sort of an all or nothing person. So it's very hard for me to say, I'm sorry, I'm probably going to miss your favorite serial killer, or
Okay.
I'm going to miss your favorite haunted restaurant. And I apologize, but there's only so much I can. And I'm sorry I can't go into more depth, but what I'm doing is giving you the places to find out more.
Hmm.
So there's also websites that tell you where people are buried.
Hmm.
There are programs that help me create itineraries so that everything makes sense. And because I take all the information including museums, hotels that used to be prisons or courthouses. Same thing with restaurants, haunted restaurants and museums, the ghost tours, the regular true crime tours, any attractions that have to do with crime and punishment, all the places that people were buried, as long as they weren't cremated or anything, I'm putting them in. Interesting thing in Maine, a lot of people are buried at sea. So of course I can't include that.
Go
but
figure.
That was the one, it was very interesting because that's the only place I really encountered that. And then I'm sort of putting all that information together in itineraries, so that you don't backtrack and it all makes sense. But I now use a program to help me with that. And then I have information on resources if, God forbid, you are a victim of those crimes.
Right.
So, I'm gathering information from a lot of different places. And as I told you before we started recording, my bibliography is about 500 different pieces. I mean, it's 9-10 pages just of references. So these books take me about 4 or 5 months each to write.
Oh, wow.
And that's pretty solid work. Whereas New England comes out in February and August, I've got New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. And there's so much crime in New York, that was almost 30,000 words on its own.
We never like to leave the people disappointed. New York, New York.
And I couldn't even include the western part of the state. I had to include from the capital region down to Long Island. There's plenty of, crime in Rochester and Buffalo, but I'll have to put that in the blog because there's just no room in the book.
Oh, there's a blog also.
Well, I have vacationscanbemurder.com. And right now there's like snippets in there because I haven't released the book yet and I'm busy writing them. But I will be including things. And what I really like is if people have traveled for looking at true crime or for necrotourism, which is looking at cemeteries. It's also called tombstone traveling. Or if you're someone who loves traveling to see jails or you're a paranormal traveler, I'll be happy to interview you and talk about what you've seen and put that in the blog too. I think that would be really interesting because I can't travel to see them all.
Yeah.
But there are plenty of people who do, and I would love to include them in the blog.
So question for you. I feel like you may have already completed the answer, but in case there's more information, what is the format of the book? Is it like a casual read, or is it more a giving encyclopedia, right? You look up the state, you go to the state that you're looking for, and the information. Okay. And so how does each breakdown work?
It is, but I try to be pretty conversational in the descriptions of the crimes. So you would actually, you start off with crime statistics for the state. It's divided up by state alphabetically. I've got crime statistics. Then I have summaries of the major crimes, and I do it by the location, like the town, and I do it alphabetically. And then I have a list of where to read more. Then I have the, I think, you know what? I'm just going to pull it up because I want to get the order right. Give me 1 sec.
Sure.
It sounds pretty silly that I don't know, but I want to get it accurate.
Oh, no, it's not silly at all. I do the same thing. Every time I try to explain to people that I have a road trip itinerary pack, I always, for some reason, forget. And it's only like 5 cities. And see, look, and here we are. So I get it. It's not silly at all.
Yeah, I have the summaries by town of all the major events that happen there. Then I have the books. Then I have accommodations and restaurants that were crime or justice related or haunted. And that's again broken up by area.
Now, what would justice related be?
Like a courthouse that used to be, or a jail that used to be, or used to be that. Now it's a restaurant or a hotel. Then I have, takes a while, crime tours and paranormal tours. And this is again broken up by town. Then I have attractions. So an example of an attraction might be a prison that you can visit, like in Pennsylvania. You can go to the Eastern State Penitentiary, which is now like a museum, and it's fascinating. And that's right in Philly.
So I was going to ask where that is, because I feel like I think that actually might be a real jail. My brother used to go to Penn State, and on the drive to go see him, there was just like so many signs about such and such prison or penitentiary. It was something, and I just always would wonder, like, how do parents feel dropping their kids off at the school, just driving casually by? Beware of
It,
prisoners, kind of thing.
it's huge and it's fascinating inside. So I highly recommend that as a tour. But here's an example also, police museums. So if
Okay.
people want to learn more about what the police are doing, and I'm sure there are lots of little kids that would love to
Hmm.
find out, these are great places to take your kids. There are courthouse museums as well. And then I go into, again, all of this is alphabetical by town.
Hmm.
Then I have all the state and federal prisons. If you want to drive by and see where somebody was incarcerated or is currently incarcerated,
Okay.
you can't go in. Some of these places have gift shops where the inmates have made things that you can take or buy, not take. Some of them have culinary programs where you can go into a restaurant and be served by the convicts who are actually pretty close to getting out. It's usually
Okay.
run by younger convicts that are maybe 6 months before they're going to be able to get out. But the food is good and it's cheap, and you're helping to rehabilitate, contribute to rehabilitation. So I think that's a great thing. Then I have the burial sites,
Hmm.
and again, broken up by town. And then I have putting it all together, which are the itineraries. And so
Okay.
that will be broken up by usually county or a couple of counties together. And
That
maybe
makes
I'll have
sense.
3 or 4 tours that break the state up into, places. So you're not, itineraries that you're not backtracking. It makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense the way and that'll bring everything together.
Especially
And
if
then
you're
I
not
have,
familiar with the state. Like you feel like, oh, we can see this, we can see this, we can see this,
yeah,
and you're not realizing that they're all 500 miles away in one state.
yeah, I think this is the part that's really unique to the book,
Yes,
that
it
I
sounds
brought it
like it.
together. And that's a lot. It's a lot of work to do that, but it's one of my favorite parts because I guess I like puzzles and organizing things, and this lets me do that. And in this section, I'm actually giving you the addresses of where the murders happened or the
Ooh,
crimes happened. If it's an apartment building or a business, I give you the exact address. If it's a private house, I'm going to give you the block, like the 0 to 100 block, because I
mm-hmm.
don't want to be
Yeah,
responsible for people being outside gawking, and also for people who didn't know they moved into a house where someone was killed. I don't want to be the person who tells them. It's easy enough, I guess, for them to find it themselves on Google, but I don't want to be part of the problem. Um,
reasonable.
yeah. And then I talk about the resources that will help them if they are a victim themselves.
So, did you have anything that stood out to you as like, oh, never would have imagined this? Was there anything that, being that you were in the throes of all the research, did any one particular crime or
Yeah,
like what?
absolutely. Though it's not going to be New England, it's going to be New York.
Go for
Um,
it. I am
Albert
game for.
Fish. I don't know if you've heard of Albert Fish,
I
but
don't
he
know. I
was
don't retain
somebody
things.
who
Go ahead.
kidnapped. I'll start at the beginning. When he was young, his mother put him into an orphanage
Hmm.
temporarily, I think, while she was getting her life together. And he fell in with the wrong kind of people. And he sort of got abused, and he discovered he really liked it. And he started connecting pain with pleasure. And so got into all of this S&M type stuff. Um, as he grew older, he started kidnapping small children and eating them. And
When
he
was this?
kidnapped. Yeah, he was in New York City. He put in. He found ads for people who were looking for work. And in one particular situation, he went and visited this family, and he was going to hire the boy and his friend to come to his farm and help him raise his children, because this guy had like 6 kids and his wife had died. And he took a fancy to the kid's 10-year-old daughter, a 10-year-old sister, I'm sorry. And so he talked the parents into letting him take the daughter to a birthday party, and she never came back. And he took her to Irvington to a house he had, and he murdered her. He might have raped her. I don't know. It was never clear. And he ate her. And then 6 years later, he sent the mother a letter describing all this.
Jesus
and
Christ.
and he did it several times. This guy, um, it was horrible.
When
And he
was
ended
this?
up
Was this like the 70s, the 60s, 80s?
I think it's earlier than that. Actually, hold on, and I
Okay.
will. Actually, I've got the wrong book up, so
Oh,
I
don't worry
can't.
about it. I'll
Um, but no,
something
it was
Fisher.
it was in the early part of I think like the 1930s maybe,
Okay. Well, not that it
and
makes it better, but like
he ended up
long, long ago.
yeah he ended up being caught. He ended up being electric, put in the
Hmm.
electric chair. And the thing was, this guy used to have his children hit him with a paddle with nails on it because he liked pain so much. So he had inserted needle. I hope this is not too graphic for your listeners. He inserted needles into his scrotum, and when he got
Jesus.
electrocuted, his electrocution took extra long because those needles were absorbing some of the electricity. It's horrible.
Yeah. I can see why that one would stand out.
It
That's
absolutely
wild.
did. Anything with
That's wild.
cannibalism stood out to me.
Okay.
But
Were
then I
there
had
others?
there was yeah there were some other ones.
I don't know
And
why those people don't stand out more in like other telling of this. Like you hear about the missing kids and women, but that,
it was
yeah.
horrific. But then there were things I really loved reading about. I hate reading about anything where children or animals are hurt. And then I would see their pictures in when I was
Mm.
researching the graves, and I would cry because it really affected me. One of the stories I really loved was Charles Ponzi and the Ponzi schemes. He was in Boston, and this guy just was so persistent that even after he was in jail for his Ponzi scheme and he got out and he was awaiting a trial for something else, he went down to Florida and he started selling underwater land that was underwater to people. I mean, he just was really committed to
Wow.
scamming people, and I had to admire that. I
So
like
okay,
commitment.
that's a respectable. So it's not just murder and mayhem. There's also just regular crime.
Yeah,
Yes, in the
if
book.
I found it interesting, yes. Like there's an
Hmm.
example. This is one of my favorite stories. There was this guy, and I'm sorry I'm not using names. I do
It's
have
fine.
the names in the book. I'm trying to
It's more
remember.
reason to read the book. This is the
Yeah,
teaser.
there was a guy in New Hampshire. He was taking cosmetology classes and learning how to cut hair. And one day something triggered him. I think his teacher told him he wasn't ready to go out and cut hair, and he sort of lost it. He went down to Brookline and he shot up a Planned Parenthood clinic. And then he shot up another one, and then he went down to Virginia. And I think that's where he went down south, even if it wasn't in Virginia, and they caught him. But what's interesting to me about the story is that when he was in Brookline, he shot after this woman. I mean, he went in and she ran out. A bunch of people ran out, and he was shooting after them. This woman escaped. She went home. She was so traumatized, she could not go back. She ended up carrying her baby to term. And then she sued Planned Parenthood because they had inadequate security. And she sued them for wrongful life. And she ended up
Whoa.
getting settled out of court because I think she was suing for the cost of raising that child for 18 years. But I just found that really interesting to sue somebody
Yeah.
for wrongful life. So even if there's not murder, I really like putting stories like that in the book that are just found really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Suing for wrongful life. That's nuts. Who would have
Yeah,
thought? When was that? What era? Is that like an
I think
80s,
that's not
90s?
that long ago. I think that
Okay.
was maybe in the 70s or 80s.
Okay.
I
That
can actually
is
tell you that because I can look that up. Hold on, get 1 second.
that one's really interesting to me.
Um,
And she says one. Okay. She got settlement or a what do you actually call a it didn't go to trial, but whether she won the trial, I don't know if you consider, yeah, you win that or settling. She
it
got
was
something.
Yeah,
That's fascinating.
the guy who was the killer was a guy named John C. Salvi III, and the woman who sued was named Deborah Gaines. And let me see if I have a
Gaines
year. It was
okay.
1994.
Okay.
So pretty recent. To me, that's recent. I know that's like 30 years ago, but to me, it's
It feels
recent.
recent because when I hear 30 years ago, I don't think of, I mean, yes, I think of the 90s, but then at the same time, like my brain goes to the 70s. I don't know why 2000 is like
Yeah.
the pin in the timeline for me, but then I have to readjust. In terms of New England, was there anything that you were looking forward to looking into? Like had you had anything like mentally in your mind that you knew you wanted more information on that may have,
Well, you know what? I'll tell you, I liked covering the Boston Strangler for a very strange reason. And that was because in the newspaper reports, I had all the addresses. They were
mm,
all apartments, and I had all the addresses because what was important to me about covering something is that there were places for people to visit. If you
right.
want to see where things happened, I have to take you there and I have to have the addresses. That was actually part of the fun too, is finding the addresses because I had to do some detective work. I have some programs that go back 20 or 30 years with addresses. And there were times where there was one killer who had lived in another town and he was late on his rent or something, and his landlord has spoken out, and his former neighbor spoke out about it. And I was able, through having his ex-wife's name and his neighbor's name, I was able to figure out where he lived, and it wasn't reported in any of the newspapers.
Oh, you're
um,
good.
so what I write is that it's likely that he lived
Hmm.
here because I didn't have it definitively, but I
Right.
explained that this is through my own research that I found. But those were the most fun parts for me, is digging up that information. And a lot of times you have to go through like 10 different newspaper accounts to find an address.
Okay, that
But
makes
that's
sense.
what
Something more local.
I wanted to provide people with those addresses as closely as I could, because I figured that's why they're reading the book. So they have one central place to
Hmm.
know where to look.
Now, what about like businesses or more public places, parks or schools, libraries, whatever? Were there
Restaurants.
any yes. Were there
Yeah.
any in particular that stood out to you that are still like doing business, whether they're doing business like as the same kind of establishment or something different? But were there any of those that stood out that weren't like domestic, if you will, like in a home, if yeah, like in a house or an apartment?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I found that a lot of mobsters get killed when they're eating.
Okay.
We're about to go in a restaurant. And I
So
told my
TV's got
son,
that right.
I said to my son, if you ever join organized crime, don't eat out.
No, keep it in house.
Yeah, I mean, there were places where people were visiting their barbers and they were shot up, and the barbers were in hotels.
Okay.
There are definitely hotels where there were murders, and those hotels are still open. And I list those as well. I mean, if people want to stay in those hotels, a lot of them have closed. A lot of, COVID killed a lot of businesses.
Okay.
So some things died from that. Some things probably died from the bad publicity
Oh, are there
of
any of
these
those that you
stories.
can think of? Like, and did bad publicity maybe mar anyone from continuing business that you can remember?
I don't know. There were nightclubs where people,
Okay.
Aaron Hernandez, the football player, and I think this is in the New England book. He had interactions where he was really nasty to people from Cape Verde in various nightclubs, but those nightclubs have closed, and I doubt it was because of this.
Okay.
But I do give
That's
the addresses if people want to go to those spots, because I think people care about being there even if they're closed, or if they become something else. They can say, I was at that spot. I
right.
can
Right.
visualize how it happened.
That's making me think of is it Hulu? It might be Hulu. They've got this. Yes, I think it is Hulu. Hulu. Something about not I love the 90s, but it's in that vein. And there are, I think I noticed that there's the 90s and then there's one for like the 2000s. There's also a content creator who I will mention here before I forget. I think her name is it I'll drop it in the description box. I feel like her name is Lexi, but I don't remember like the full name. She does really great like decade content, like content from the 80s, the 90s, 2000s, but her content um I'll just drop her into the description. I don't even want So good. So good. Like, she is another one that just the research that goes into getting this information is just like nuts. And then she's doing like a YouTube video over it. Love it. But anyway, the Hulu documentary is like kind of not similar, but you had mentioned like clubs that closed down, and the one where I feel like, was it Johnny Depp? I feel like Johnny Depp owned it in LA, and River Phoenix died in the front of
Oh,
the,
yeah.
like on the sidewalk outside. There was an episode about that. When we went to Salem, we ended up doing a guided tour, like a self-guided tour, instead of a tour led by a person. I personally would like to not be out late. I'm generally tired by like 8:30, 9 o'clock as it is. So, and I feel like a lot of those tours started at like 7, 8:30. I also don't particularly like having to stay with the group. Like, if I'm more interested in one thing or the other, I'd rather just move at my own pace. But there was a restaurant. I'm pretty sure it was a restaurant, but it was like owned by someone, like was on the land of someone who was either killed in the Salem witch trials, or they Alexander Graham Bell made his first phone call from that location also. It was like really interesting, and that place was still open, and you pass by there, and it was also like one of those places, I guess you could say like a town hall. It was really interesting. Not interesting enough to go inside, but like I enjoy history as it is. And so just knowing that there are some buildings that start out as one thing in, say, 1632, for whatever reason, they're still standing. Or the land that is on it has been multi-purpose throughout the years, but then they generally, which is interesting to me, is like when they don't change what it is too frequently. Like, there was one block we went down before that that had the jails, and there was the Salem jail, and I don't know if that was the one where they said the women that were, well, the people, because it wasn't just women, but the people who were accused stayed. But then there was another one that was more recent, where, and by recent I mean like current time, not like 1600s, but more like the 1900s. And I was saying the prisoners were saying that it was haunted. It's a condo now. I
Yeah.
personally, I I would never do that. Funny enough, I have a question for you. Would you live in a house where you knew someone was killed, not died? Because I feel like there's a strong distinction. People die all the time, right? There's Death is natural. But where someone may have had like an untimely demise, or if someone were unfortunately a victim of a very violent crime in their home, would you ever live in a house where that
Absolutely.
has happened? You would.
I would. Yeah, much
Okay.
cheaper.
Okay.
I have a friend who wants
Big
to write
reason.
a book about stigmatized houses. I'm actually going to write a fiction book about somebody who specializes in stigmatized houses, a realtor. I do a lot of books that involve realtors because I am a realtor as well. So I have a lot of, like, actually realtors who do naughty things in big in empty houses and things like
Oh, I
that.
believe that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, in my book, it was fictional, and I wrote it under another name because I didn't want my clients to think I did those things in their houses.
Smart.
Um, yeah, I would, because you save money, and I believe that after what another, and those houses actually go at a premium. Some of them,
Yeah, I can
they do.
imagine. It can go either way.
Yeah.
Do you believe in ghosts?
Um, I do, but I believe in them in a very odd way. I believe my mother
Interesting.
watches over me. My mother recently helped me find my husband's glasses, which I looked several times in the same place for, and then I was going to have to drive into the city at night with him, and he wasn't going to be able to drive because he can't see
Right.
without his glasses,
Plot
and
twist.
I'm terrified of driving at night into the city. And I said, Mom, could you please help me find the glasses? And sure enough, I went to his office and they were someplace where I had looked before.
Oh,
So
I
I
love that.
believe in that. I have
Hmm.
never seen a ghost other than, I've never seen a ghost, and I've gone to places where they're supposed to be.
Hmm.
So I don't know. The jury's out.
Do
I
you
don't
think?
not believe it.
Okay. Do you think that you would change your mind if you saw a ghost?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I go to these places now hoping that I'll see them. Because
Now,
I'm reading all about them, and I'm like, and I've stayed at some of the places where they supposedly were, and I never saw anything
where
or
have you
heard
stayed?
anything. Um, I've eaten. I'm trying to remember. I've stayed at some. I don't even remember. I
Have
know
you been
I've
to
eaten
like
at
this
restaurants that are supposedly
haunted?
haunted. I will tell you the only place I had the sense that something was haunted was on the Queen Mary, which is now in Long Beach, California. I sailed on it when I was young, like really young, because it's been out of commission for a long time. But I had a sense that it was haunted. And I was
Hmm.
in a hotel room once in Paris, and I felt like a body was lying on top of me and I couldn't move. Now, I've heard that's called sleep paralysis, but
Hmm.
it was so very real to me.
Hmm.
And it really felt like I was being weighed down. So, in those ways, yeah, I have encountered that.
There is
So,
a terrifying movie about that, and I wish I was better at retaining titles and actors' names. That it was essentially about sleep paralysis, but it was like an actual like sleep paralysis demon. I feel like in the movie or some, it was a good movie, but it was terrifying. Um, so if I guess I don't, because my question is, it's more of a I don't know if it's like a philosophical question, but I'm always curious about people who go to haunted places that want to see haunted things because I feel as if I don't, but I do. So, like, I feel like there's a line that I wouldn't cross. Like, I would never stay at a like haunted hotel just because I am terrified of bringing any bad energy home. Have you ever used a Ouija board before?
if I ever what? I'm sorry.
Used a Ouija board before?
Yeah, I have.
When like was it like did you use it with the intentions of contacting somebody or was it just
Absolutely.
for shits and giggles?
It was, but I was very young and it was
Okay.
to contact people and nothing happened.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
so I don't know if it's bad luck or what. I mean, I've also gone to see psychics, like dinners where psychics are picking people out of the audience because I'm sort of hoping my mom will have something to say to me, and they never pick me out. So I
Hmm.
haven't had the luck with that, other than my mom showing me her presence by helping me find
And I
things.
think honestly that that's more meaning well to me. I can't speak for you or for anybody else. I would think that that would be to me that would be more meaningful because I would feel like that was a direct line that I had to her. I asked specifically for this and I received as opposed to if I received a message through someone else, I would always have in the back of my mind, did I like self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Did I kind of say something in the line to get in, or was there something planted, or was I chosen, or you know what I mean? I would think more than I would wonder if it were staged. And I believe in the in ghosts the same way you do, also in my own ghost way because I've seen a ghost. But my grandma used to pray to Saint Anthony all the time. Her oldest son, my mom's younger brother, is named Anthony. And so whenever my grandma can't find something, or whenever I would say to my grandma, Grandma, where is this? Or I can't, whatever, whatever, just say a prayer to Saint Anthony and your uncle will help you, which was always like weird to me in my mind because it's like, well, if I'm praying to Saint Anthony, why don't I just ask my uncle to help me? Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm
Yeah.
Saint Anthony isn't my uncle, grandma. So which one are we going for? But that was I always just used to I never asked. I just okay, sure. And so I would try it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I'm always curious about, when people actively go with the intentions of like seeing something, like what would you do if it happened? Like what is the plan?
I think I would get to say to my husband, see, because my husband doesn't believe in any of it and he thinks I'm ridiculous for believing in it. And even though she helped me find his glasses,
Right.
he doesn't, he said, well, why doesn't your mother tell us
The
the
lotto
numbers for the
numbers
next
or
lottery? I mean, I would use that as a way to say, see, I told you so.
okay. Reasonable enough. Any reason that means something is reason enough. So you had mentioned that you had gone to see like the psychics and mediums. Did you ever watch shows about psychics and I stand Patricia Arquette. I love Medium. I love Medium. Have you ever like spoken with anyone like the actual Allison that works with law enforcement to maybe solve crimes or anything like that?
No, but I think I have a book in my mind that's going to involve a psychic detective, somebody who consults with the police. And I do have a book that's waiting for me to read it, to research for that character. So, I mean, I must believe these things. I believe in the paranormal because I have done things like Ouija boards. I have seen psychics. I'm open to it. But as time has gone on, I've grown to believe that I don't know if they just hang around waiting to scare anybody. I think they are there to contact a specific person that they
Hmm.
know. And that's the best I can say. I mean, no one knows. So, but
Okay.
yeah, I'm not apologizing for seeing psychics, although some of them would say things like, I see that you live in a square room.
Don't most of them?
Yeah,
Like that's
I
dumb.
do.
I had one time I was, and this, and I, that's another reason why I truly do believe that, well, this isn't necessarily the reason, but I do believe that people have certain gifts and abilities. And the one experience I had with it, because I would never really, I would always second guess somebody. Like I would need a recommendation from like I would need someone to have to tell me, no, I've been to this person. I've had a friend that told me, no, you got to go see my girl. She's really good. But I never did. But I'll never forget, I was working retail and I was in college and mind my business as much as you mind your business when you're on the sales floor and you're putting stuff away. And for some reason, this woman came up to me and was saying something about the this letter in your life or something, and she out of nowhere, unprovoked, very kind woman, and she just came over and was telling me like it'll all work out, everything is going to be fine. She was dead on about the letter. She was very close to kind of like what the situation was. She didn't ask for anything. She was just, I just want you to know this, and then she left, and it was kind of like,
Wow, that's
okay.
spooky.
I truly believe I do not, but I think what I'm like seeing a difference, right? And I'm certain that there are even more types of people in this little circle of the paranormal. But I'm feeling like there's a difference between people who go and welcome like an encounter. It seems like you welcome an encounter. I don't want an encounter. Like, but I still would like to, or I still think I could go, but I know that I am terrified of something attaching to me and like me bringing something back with me. Like, does that not like, is that not a fear? You don't,
I've never
a
even thought of
concern,
that.
maybe not a fear. Really?
I've never even considered that. I think because I'm not sure that I just never even thought that it would attach to me. I think it would just be there. Why would it attach to me?
Okay. Fair. Fair.
I've got enough of my own demons. I don't need any
Right.
more.
And see, that's why I feel like one, I feel like that's another reason why ghosts are actually real. There's so much going on in our regular lives. Like, I don't think that this could like be it. You know what I mean? Not to say that I have a clue what it on the other end is. I don't.
Yeah,
Don't even
yeah,
think I need to know. But I just the same way I believe in aliens. The galaxy, there's too much stuff. There's too much for
yeah.
us to be it. And we're humans. We're stupid in the great scheme of things, we are stupid. We are not as I truly do not believe us to be the end all be all of all creation. And I think that there is so much outside of what we can actively see. And also it's just so much that we haven't yet to discover. Like there's so much that we haven't learned. Like before there was light, it was just like, okay, well, this is all there is of stuff. And then there was light. And then there was music. And there's written form and all the things that come with it. But I truly am always like so uniquely fascinated by people who are not terrified of this stuff. I have another question for you, and I love
Sure.
asking people this question.
Okay.
If you had to choose, would you be a witch, a vampire, or a werewolf?
I might be a witch.
Okay, why?
Um, I guess I could cast spells on people. I don't know. There's so many different interpretations of what witches could do, but I'd like to fly.
Okay,
If I could
fair.
fly on a broomstick, I think that would be kind of cool.
I always say witch as well because I have no desire to live forever. Totally, I'm uninterested. Um, and I don't want to be a werewolf because I don't need body hair. Like, you can run fast, and then like, what else can you do, right? Werewolf, but witches, you can do all the things. Then it also depends on the type of lore you follow. Like, what type of witch are you? What are your capabilities? Are you a limited witch? Is this a charmed witch? Are we talking Phoebe, Piper, and Prue, or are we talking like Freya from Originals, or are we talking Vincent from Originals, and Bonnie Vampire Diet? Like, there's so many different types of witches, but I always love, and I love how quickly you had your answer. I really do enjoy that because I truly feel like I would be a great witch. I used to always think that if I practiced hard enough, or if I tried, that I'd be able to muster up some superpowers. If you could choose a power, what would it be?
Well, I was going to say my husband already thinks I'm a witch, so I'm
You might
joking.
be, and that's another thing. Like, we could
um,
all have something.
I think it would be between mind reading and being invisible.
Ooh,
I'd like because then I could go into all sorts of places and find out things, and I mean, it would be convenient if I wanted to steal.
yeah, very true.
Your viewers are getting such a great impression of me.
This is so much fun, though. I would always want, I think mind reading is a bold one. I would never want to be able to read minds. I feel like I think too much already. I don't want to add on top of that. Especially don't want things to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Not realized, but confirmed, if you will. Like, you can have a bad feeling and then all of a sudden, oh no, I was right. Terrifying. Always wanted the power of telekinesis. I feel like you're very unfuckwittable. Like, someone's coming at you, shoot. You know what I mean? Want something to come closer, shoot. Like, it just, like, so many different purposes. Like, there's so many different ways to use it. Okay, so to wrap this up, overall, with all of the different locations in New England, do you feel like there's a particular area in the region that's more spooky than the others?
I would say if you're looking for crime, Boston is pretty. I mean, Massachusetts was definitely of the 6 states was definitely the most crime, and
Okay.
lots of different. It's because you also have the suburbs around it. I mean, there was one
Okay.
story. I'm not going to remember which suburb it was, and I hope your viewers don't think that I just what is she doing writing a book? She can't remember anything. It's just that I don't have it all
Trust me, they
written
won't.
down. There's so many stories.
Trust me,
Believe
they
me, they're
won't.
all in the book. But there was one guy who got into an argument with. I'm going to look this up if I've got 1 second because I think
Of
it's.
course.
If I just put in the word ZD, it'll come up,
ZD.
and it won't. 1 second. I think it was either Newton. Anyway, he told his wife, or his wife came to him and said that she burnt the ZD, or maybe he was the one that burnt the ZD, and his wife was upset. Anyway, he ended up cutting off her head and impaling her, impaling parts of her body in the backyard. And I was like, wow,
Over a
that's
ZD.
quite interesting.
And that didn't even fix the ZD. So, like, what was the point? What was the point?
I shouldn't. I think it was him that did it, and she was upset because he cooked the ZD wrong. And the police ended up finding him with his kid in a car, sort of mumbling, "I ruined the ZD."
That poor kid. That's the
Yeah,
sucked up
that's
part. It's like a lot of kids get mixed up in all of this, especially that guy's kids that he had beating him with the paddles. The guy,
yeah.
what was his name? Was it Alfred something? Alfred
It
Fisher
was
or Fisher?
Albert Fish.
Albert Fish. Okay, yeah, that one. Those poor kids.
Yeah.
But where can the people find you? How can we support you? And when can we anticipate Vacations Can Be Murder?
So the first Vacations Can Be Murder will be out hopefully February 4th.
Mm-hmm.
The second one, I believe, will be out New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. I believe will be out in the middle of August. My website, if people will just join the mailing list at vacationscanbemurder.com, they will get updates about everything, like when it's available for
Mm-hmm.
pre-order, because I'm just still waiting for the edits. That's why I wasn't sending any out. But you do have snippets of what's in the book, and actually parts that I haven't even published yet, but I had researched because, like, I went to Baltimore for a convention of cozy mysteries, and I did a piece for that. So I just researched that area. So the Baltimore, Washington area, I have something there. I have something on. I'm trying to remember where else. Anyway, they're there. And you can get a taste for the book there. And I have something about a haunted area, I think, also in Maryland. And also, if you go to Facebook, I have under true crime. It's Vacations Can Be Murder, but I think if you go facebook.com/true crime travel stories or true crime travel, it's probably true crime travel stories. I put the day's true crime, like today in true crime history, this happened.
Oh, that's
so
interesting.
You can catch that there.
You said that's on Facebook?
Yeah. I think if you go to if you just go to Facebook and search for Vacations Can Be Murder, it'll come up, and you can join it, and you can follow it and get those updates every day.
Yeah. I mean, you're listening to me. I'm listening to some kind of crime podcast every day anyway, so I might as well get an update as to what is going on. Do you have any tips for travelers to bring with them, if you will, along this journey?
Tell me, can you describe what you mean? Because I'm not sure what you're asking.
For example, like a closing remark, if you will, like a suggestion for people while they're visiting some of these places or while they are using your book as a resource in these different areas.
Yeah.
Is there something that readers should keep in mind or just keep present in terms of how to engage with the work, or like a funny quote, or just something that you would want to close out as parting words for people, to future readers of the book?
Yeah, I think they should take notes, and they should videotape like what they're doing, like little snippets, and I'll definitely add it to my TikTok, and I'll add it to my blog. And I would love this to be sort of crowdsourcing.
Mm.
And that's the way I sort of felt about the book I wrote about traveling with children with autism. I was like, if you found someplace that really works for you, tell me, because let's combine it and let's make this crowdsourcing, because a group of people can do better than just one.
Yeah. Dawn, thank you so much for joining me and for helping me to reinforce that travel is so much more than vacation. Plenty of people travel for leisure, and unfortunately, plenty of people travel for other more serious reasons in terms of being with, other family members who have been the victims of crimes, or to support friends and family in terms of, loss, grief, and all of the heavy things that come with losing people that you care about, and unfortunately violent crimes. I would personally just suggest that if you are engaging in any of these destinations, especially the private residences, be respectful. Don't get yourself messed up in these streets, because these are people's homes. Like, people actually live here, and there's no reason for you to get added to a list. So thank you for joining us this week. I hope you guys enjoyed a little bit of the spooky for the holidays, not the holiday, the October season, and I will see you next week. Bye.